בשלח, something very nice from Rabbi Levi Yitzchok Zatzal. The discussion we're going to talk about, is actually, its source is a Gemara, a Mishnah, in Masechta Sukkah Daf Memhei Amar Aleph, and Rashi explains something over there taken from this week's Parsha. Rashi doesn't say it, but the source of that subject, Inyan, is from this week's Parsha in the Zohar. The Mishnah discusses over there on the 7th day of Sukkot, when you take the Arava, and we, in our davening, we say it in the long davening of, we have a Shana Rabbah, we say, Ani v'hu Hashiano, both Ani and v'hu going on Hashem. Please help us. Ani and v'hu have 3 letters each. Aleph Nun Yud, Vov, Vez, Vov, Vohu. Vov, Hey, Vov, Vohu. Ani v'hu. Where's this name come from? Rashi explains. In this week's Parsha, in Perek Yudalet, 3 psukim, Yutes, Chof, Chof, Aleph. The beginning of it's known as Vayisa, Vayovoi, Vayet. First 3 words of each pasuk. All of these 3 psukim have 72 letters exactly, as we'll soon explain. Why 72? And the way it works is, the Zohar says these 3 psukim correspond to Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov. And we know Avram is Midas HaChesed, Yitzchok is Midas HaGvura, Yaakov Midas HaTeferes, as we'll soon explain. And the order of the psukim go like this. Rashi explains, I take them from Zohar. The first pasuk, you take the first letter. Then you go and you take the last letter from the second pasuk. And then you take the first letter from the third pasuk. And then again, you take the second letter from the first pasuk. Then you take the second to the last letter from the second pasuk. And then you take the second letter from the third pasuk, and you put these 3 letters together, and you add, and it comes out to 72 names of Hashem. And Ani v'hu is 2 of those names. If you have 72 names, combination of the 3 psukim. If you divide it in half, 36 and 36, 2 columns, you will see the top ones will be Ani and Vahu. As the Tosis Yom Tov explains very clearly, comes Rebbe Yitzchok and asks a couple of questions. Nowhere in the Torah do we find such a thing. The 3 psukim, one after another, have exactly 72 letters. Why 72? Also, if you make the combination of all the names, first pasuk you go in order, the second pasuk you go backwards, and the third pasuk you go straight. That means you take a letter from the first, a letter from the second going backwards, a letter from the third going forwards, and you make a combination, 72 names. So why 72? And also, why the first do you go straight, the second pasuk you go backwards, and the third pasuk you go forwards? What's the reason of all this? Says Rabbi Levi Yitzchok, Hashem told the Yidden, as it says in Zohar, that everything I do has to have these 3 components: Chesed, Gevura, and Teferes, corresponding to Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov. I'm going to give a simple example. Let's say you have a teacher who's teaching Gemara, 7th grade, 10th grade. The teacher is very experienced and knows, very smart, very scholar, and he knows his stuff on a very deep level. It's understood. When the teacher comes the next day in class, it can't right away give over the whole depth the way the teacher understands it. It's above the student's mind. So now if you look, there's a process here. The teacher has to learn the subject on his own very well, knows it thoroughly. Then he has to now think about the students. And he has to figure out, I have to now slice back, cut back, conceal a major part of the depth of the subject there. It's too deep for the students. So on one hand, he wants to give, that's called chesed. On the other hand, he has to conceal a great depth of the subject and many details of it. And then comes the third component, finding the right measure, the right balance. How much does he give? How much does he conceal? That's called teferes. Beauty, a mixture, a blend, as we've spoken many times. Take another example. Mother goes to the store and buys a container of milk, 32 ounces. The reason why I bought the milk in order to give the child a bottle. So the mother comes home with this 32 ounces. Now, give a look what happens. It wants to give, but it can't give everything. The child's not going to drink 32 ounces. So it holds back in the container most of it. And now it figures out, the child is this age, 2 ounces, 3 ounces, whatever it should be, the proper measure. So you always have, whenever one person, A, wants to give something to B, whether it's charity, information, study, whatever it should be, a mother to children, you have these three components. On one hand, they want to give. On the other hand, you have to conceal, you have to hold back, can't give everything. And then you have to find the right measure, how much to give. And that's why Chesed and Tiferes are very similar. Chesed wants to give everything, or Gevurah conceals, and Tiferes also gives, but the right measure. If you're looking from Hashem's components, this one says in Chassidus, you have Chesed means you have light, revelation. That's the Oid Ein Sof. Then comes Gevurah, the Tzimtzum. Hashem said, I can't give everything. The world won't be a vessel for it. They're not kalim for such great light. Have to conceal. Have to reveal Koyach HaGvul. And then what? Hashem finds the right measure. That's the Kav. So every single thing how Hashem creates the world, Hashem says, I need these three components of Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov. Now, but give a look at this, says Rebbe Yitzchok. If you think about it, the teacher who wants to give information, the mother wants to feed the child, the Eibishter who wants to create a world, kind to the world. These are three components, but what's the drive behind everything? What's the force? Is the giving. The mother wants to give a child food. The teacher wants to share information. Hashem, Olam Chesed Yiboneh, wants to be good to the people. But in order to be good, you have to have these three components. So these are three details that are all part of the general Chesed. And that's why it's known in Chassidus called Chesed Ozil Im Kula Yomen. The virtue of the force of being kind brings all the other midos. Because I want to be kind to students, because the mother wants to be kind to children, it has to figure out, it has to have concealment, and it also has to figure out how do I package and deliver the right measure. But all are forced behind it. The force behind everything is what? Chesed, kindness. Now give a look at a beautiful thing. Chesed adds up to 72. Ches Samach Dalet. And that's why the three psukim, all the three psukim exactly add up to Chesed. To tell you, even though you're going to see Gevurah, and even though there's a concealment and there's Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, all these three components, don't think that they're separate. It's all imbued with one thread, and that is the giving, the Chesed. And that's why there's 72 names. And that's why also in our Shemon Esrei, says Rebbe Yitzchok, what do we start off with? Elkei Avram, Elkei Yitzchok, Elkei Yaakov. But then what do we finish up with? Mogein Avraham. Everything is really, all these three components are infused by the Chesed of Avraham. And this is so beautiful, why all the three psukim have exactly 72. All the names are 72, and that's the reason why the first pasuk is Chesed, kindness, revelation. I go forward in the letters. The second pasuk is Gevurah, concealment. I hold back. I go backwards, symbolizing the concealment. And the third pasuk, which is also giving Tiferes, I also go forward, and that's the order of the psukim, and that's the beautiful explanation of the Ab Shemois, the 72 names of Hashem, all adding up to 72 Chesed, that Olam Chesed Yibon, the world, the foundation of the world is Chesed.